Okay, ladies, it's Yolanda. I just wanted to thank all of y'all for responding and,
Okay, sorry about the delay. I'm going to have to do that again. My program is just... that's why. It's stuck on me. So bear with me. Let me just open that up again, and we're going to be with you in a short while. So stand by. I'm not going to go live yet. Let's do this.
Imperial Lounge presents an icon.
Reggae dancehall by the beach. To be held at Imperial Lounge, 2 to 14 High Street, Margate Seafront, Kent, CT9 180. To be held on the first Saturday of each month. Your host DJ Matt. Also rotating DJs, Roddy Boone, DJ Happy,
and Younger General.
Doors open 8 p.m. till late. Free entry all night. Music policy, reggae, dancehall, and a touch of soul. On the first Saturday of each month. Reggae dancehall by the beach. At the Imperial Lounge Margate. Do remember you can also get VIP and Shisha booking. More info on the World Jam Global website. That's www.worldjamglobal.com. Also www.imperialloungemargate.co.uk.
It's the right thing you doing. Rebellious like Malcolm. 1, 2, 3, swing it.
Do you have an old sound tape or your favorite cassette tape that you want converted to CD or MP3 format? Do you need a demo CD, radio ad, a DJ, or even a sound system for your wedding, birthday, or special occasion? Then why not get in contact with KTR Records on 07931 152 448 or check out our website on www.ktrrecords.com. We have been in business since 2004 and also undertake community projects. So for your remixes, duplets and all your sound editing needs, why not contact KTR Records, official sponsor of World Jam Global Radio. KTR Records, coming your way. Do you like music like this?
Great music all the time.
Or like this?
The music you love.
Maybe this.
Great music that makes you want to turn up the volume loud.
Or life chat like this.
Especially where human life is concerned. Surely, sooner or later, people will realize that lives actually matter.
Then you're in the right place. Keep it locked to World Jam Global, where music is harmony.
Music 24 hours a day, 365 days a year.
Yeah, you're my World Jam. Hotter than them.
See live schedule.
You see, it's here. You see. New feature coming from World Jam Global Radio in 2018. World Jam Global Top 10. To vote for your favorite artist, go to twitter.com/worldjamglobal or facebook.com/worldjamglobal. So pick the right track where you want to have in your car, at your house, a rock. At them.
Let's just get ready for the... I'm not even ready. It's such a mess today. Why have I done that? Let's do this. Just want to say a really big sorry. I'm just totally disorganized today.
Already did my time. I paid for.
Got so much guests lined up, and one guest we've only just got her on.
For my crime.
But I'm in the middle of sharing this stream live across the world, so give me a couple of minutes and I'll be right with you. because we do have a jam-packed show for you today.
I paid for my crime. Already did my time. I paid for my crime.
You can get us on www.worldjamglobalradio.com, on Facebook Live. Issues today, World Jam Global Radio.
I didn't really care about the system. It was
and all other social media networks.
It was do or die. I had too many rivals. I was too young.
While I'm getting myself together, please drop into the chat room, drop into the message box, and say a big hello to my brand new producer, Teresa Gallagher.
I was swimming in women. I had girls all over the street. I was getting money. Life was so sweet.
Her first time in charge of the big one.
It's been rearranged. I'm a changed man, don't need no gun in my hand. It ain't about being no gangster, life is too short.
I do believe we're truly blessed.
Trying to cope with this living hell. Already did my time.
And I'm really looking forward to working with her.
Already did my time. I paid for my crime.
I want to say a big shout out going out to all you activists and supporters of police brutality and killed by cops and unlawful convictions and
already did my time. I paid for my crime.
Big shout out to Post, protect our stolen treasures.
I sold more drugs than Superfly, but I never got high on my own supply.
And all similar groups and organizations
That's why
that support the families of victims.
I had to repent, I must admit. I was doing all kind of stupid.
And the families that are victims.
Now, sit back and think it over since I've gotten older. The life I used to live, I wouldn't do it again. I was young and dumb, my brain was so numb. I was a real Forrest Gump, but I was nobody's chump. Me and Billy the Kid had a lot in common. I was the real Terminator, much meaner than Arnold Schwarzenegger. I'd chew you up and spit you out like a real alligator, especially all you haters.
The opening statements are going on right now. He could be facing life in prison.
Already did my time, paid for my crime. Already did my time. Already did my time, paid for my crime. Already did my time. Pay for my crime, pay for my crime, pay for my crime, pay for my crime. Already did my time, I paid for my crime. Already did my time, I paid for my crime. I'm trying to get this felony off my back so I can get my life on track and have the right to vote and live like an ordinary citizen again. This is my message to all of my friends in the pen, statewide, worldwide. There was not a man I couldn't beat. I was good with my hands and very quick on my feet. I was swimming in women. I had girls all over the street. I was getting money. Life was so sweet. Now things have changed. The whole game has been rearranged. I'm a changed man. Don't need no gun in my hand. It ain't about being no gangster. Life is too short to spend it all in jail. Trying to cope with this living hell.
I'm really trying hard to just get all of these streams out. But social media is really playing up today, so bear with me.
I paid for my crime. Already did my time. I paid for my crime. Already did my time. I paid for my crime.
So on today's show, I've got Elizabeth Hawking Stevens, Jacqueline Minifield Brown, Luann Elizabeth Smith, Margot Cifuentes, Yolanda McNair, President and founder of Post Protect Our Stolen Treasures, and my brand new producer, Teresa Posselt J. Gallagher.
I wouldn't do it again. I was young and dumb, my brain was so numb. I was a real Forrest Gump, but I was nobody's chump. Me and Billy the Kid had a lot in common. I was the real Terminator, much meaner than Arnold Schwarzenegger. I'd chew you up and spit you out like a real alligator, especially all you haters.
So no matter where you are around the country, if you just stand by, get yourself a cup of coffee or hot drink or whatever you're going to do.
Did my time.
We're about to go live in the next couple of minutes.
Already did my time.
The opening statements are going on right now. He could be facing life in prison.
Wow.
And the theme of today's show, our children's voice, mothers against brutality. All of these mothers have suffered some kind of loss. Whether it be killed by cops or
trying to cope with this living hell.
Unlawfully killed. They have been going through something that unites them. And we're hoping today that you're going to hear a very important message indeed.
Thy name, thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, the glory.
We've been here before. All of these women have something in common. And I'm just really looking forward to what they have to say today. This is live on World Jam Global Radio. The program's Issues Today. My name is Kervin Julian. And you can find us live on www.worldjamglobalradio.com. It's an internet-based radio station.
Without sin.
You can also find us on all social media networks.
I'm trying to
Facebook Live.
My back so I can get my life on track and have the right to vote and live like an ordinary.
Find us on the Issues Today Facebook page. Find us on the World Jam Global Radio Facebook page.
Worldwide. And
of course, you can find me on my page. I've had a lot of problems connecting to various social media sites today. My app is just playing up this morning, or this afternoon, or tonight, whatever time zone you're in. But just to let you know, we are going out live, and I'll be with you in about 10 seconds. So now I'm going to hand over, and first and foremost, I want to introduce to you my first guest. And my first guest is my new producer, Teresa Posselt J. Gallagher. How are we doing, Teresa?
I'm doing great. How are you, Kervin?
I'm great. It's great to have you on board. This is your first show of many, we hope.
Oh, yes. I'm very excited.
Okay, and how did you find the whole experience of talking and arranging stuff with all the ladies that we got on the show today?
How do you find the Great Spirit? You know, he comes to you. You ask, you pray, and it just kind of brought me together. It drew me to you, and I guess the rest is history, right?
Right. Well, we've been having a fun time over the last few days of just talking and getting ready. So I think we've got to know each other very well. So I'm really looking forward to how that journey transpires over the next few months and weeks especially, okay? But we're going to be coming back to you very shortly. And just so that you guys are aware, Teresa has a loss of her own, killed by cops, her son. So she has experience, she has empathy, she understands what most of you women and families are going through. She's been through it and going through it herself. And so let me just move straight on to my very next guest, who really needs no introduction. She's been on my show on several occasions and is responsible for bringing a lot of these women together, especially on these group calls as well as individually. She's the president and the founder member of POST, which is Protect Our Stolen Treasures. And from the day that I've met her, I've never met a more impassioned person for justice and support for families who are going through injustices as Yolanda McNear. How are we doing, Yolanda?
Hi, Kervin. I'm doing well.
It's great to have you back on board again, and there's a lot of work and there's a lot of stuff that's been going on in the background that we've been working on, which a lot of people are still not aware of, but you keep yourself almost as actively, if not more busy than I am.
Yeah, it would seem that way.
Well, first, let me just thank you for bringing these women together for this particular show. And as we know, that our children's voices. This is the theme of today's show, Mothers Against Brutality. And can you tell me why you chose to put this together at this time?
Well, we all know that there are two times in our lives on a regular basis that it is extremely hard for us to get through our days to even figure out how we're going to breathe. And that's our children's birthdays and the holidays. And nothing drives you home more that they're no longer with us than the holidays when family is supposed to gather together.
You know what?
True.
I'm feeling that already, Yolanda.
Yes.
Yeah, it's very necessary for us to, get together, have that time where we can assure each other it's okay to feel the way that we feel and the hurt and the hear somebody else say, go ahead and love on those memories you have of your loved one. I tell people all the time, remember when they smiled, when they laughed, when they did that one thing that always irritates you. Because that's
Yes.
one of the best memories of your child or your loved one. Is when they irritate you, but they're the only ones that can do it because you love them so much.
Right.
Even to this day, your story melts me every time. And for those that don't know and are not aware, Yolanda's daughter was actually killed by an off-duty cop the day before her 25th birthday at this off-duty cop's house, who was also having a party. And I'll never forget the emotions that we raised in that show, just trying to understand how they could try and justify what they did, lie, and then criminalize a wonderful woman who had her years ahead of her and a future that looked so bright, robbed and stolen. So we share your pain, Yolanda, and we journey with you, and we keep you in continuous prayer.
Yes, we do.
And we will, if we at some point, obviously, we will refer back to Adesha's case at any point in time, and feel free to interject as we converse with these women that we're about to introduce. And I'm going to introduce firstly Jacqueline Minifield Brown, because I've also interviewed her before, and the loss of her son, Delondre Minifield. How are you doing, Jacqueline?
Hi, Kirpin. I'm doing well. How are you?
It's great to hear from you again.
You as well.
Yeah, you are. Unfortunately, your call is breaking up. Your Wi-Fi might be weak. Just check your line, and we're going to get back to you in a very short moment. I'm not sure what that sound was that was coming through your phone, but you need to manage that as well. And we're going to swiftly move on to Elizabeth Hawkins Stevens. Hi, Elizabeth.
Hi, Kirvin.
Yeah.
Hi.
So your son was Clifford O'Neill Jones, right?
Yes.
Okay, and we're going to be hearing about how he lost his life so tragically as we go through this particular 2-hour show. But if you could just tell the audience just a very brief story about who you are and why you're here on this show today.
Well, I'm a mother of 3 children, and I have 5 grandchildren. I'm also a university professor, and so I have been talking to some of these ladies lately about my research on grief. And so I'm here today because we all share a common bond.
Okay, thank you very much. And we're going to be coming back to your son's story very shortly, and you can give us a better or a bigger, a broader expansion on how that came to pass, and we'll obviously start looking at some questions on that as we go ahead. The next guest I'd like to introduce is Luann Elizabeth Smith. Are you there, Luann? Hi, Luann. Okay, that's a no-no, so we're going to move very swiftly over to Margot Cifuentes. How are you doing, Margot?
Okay, how you doing?
We're doing great. It's so glad that you could make the show, and unfortunately we didn't have time to promote the fact that you was going to be on the show, so you're an additional guest, which is we have no problem with. But if you could just tell the audience a little bit about yourself and why you're here on the show.
I'm here to get justice for my son. He was beat to death, and he was married. His wife took a settlement of money or whatever. I don't want no money. I want justice. I had a lawyer for a year, and he called me and told me he could not take my case anymore. He had to take hers because he could make more money. And I told him whatever I got, he could have. I just want justice of who did it. And he said no, he had to keep her because they worked for money, and he could get more for her.
Okay.
That's absurd.
Okay. Well, we're gonna talk about how your son died very shortly, and yeah, well, we'll talk about how your son died very shortly. We'll look at that in greater detail. I don't know if Luann Elizabeth Smith has come back yet. Luann, hi, Luann. If you take your mute off your mic, you'll be able to speak if you can hear me. I'm just going to give you a couple more seconds because we can't have dead air. Luann Smith. Yep, you just did it, but then you.
I'm here.
There
Can you
go.
hear me?
Now I can hear you.
Okay.
Okay. If you could just introduce yourself, Luann, and just give the audience a little bit of an understanding of who you are and why you're here.
Yes, I'm a parent of 4 children. My son Tyler was the youngest. He was one of the twins. And I'm a 31-year veteran school teacher. My son was killed by a police officer, allegedly during a high-speed chase, but the evidence doesn't seem to point to an actual high-speed chase. It appears that he was intentionally wrecked, and then the overturned car was smashed into by the police officer.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that also in greater detail. I mean, first and foremost, let me just say, thank you for all of you for coming on here and sharing your stories with us. And it takes a tremendous amount of bravery and courage to open yourselves up this way, bearing your souls and your emotions as you deal with something that's so personally difficult. And as Yolanda said at the beginning, when you start heading towards holidays, and I mean, you just got to remember, Christmas is just around the corner. We're not far off Christmas, and that Christmas morning is normally such a special time for families when you wake up in the morning and you gather around a Christmas tree, and then later on you sit around the table and share a meal together as you remember and reminisce of Christmases gone by, and for me, we used to have really funny because I come from a very strong West Indian close bonded family. And every year we go to different family members' homes for Christmas, etc. And as kids growing up, all the cousins have grown up together. My mother was part of 14 brothers and sisters. My father was one of 14 brothers and sisters. So we had lots of cousins and stuff that we just grew up with. And we can all remember as children, the way that our parents used to dance, or some of the naff jokes that they used to tell, or, some of the drunken behavior that led to real, absolutely ridiculed moments, of people crashing out on settees, etc., and having to be dragged up and put on a bed. And, as kids, I can remember growing up and, with my cousins, my brothers, my sisters, etc. And each year we'd have new memories to reminisce on the year before. So this time that we're coming up to is a very precious time for family. And I would imagine that all of you are going to have your own little demons to fight on Christmas morning as you contemplate the fact that your loved one is yet again not here. So I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for giving us an opportunity to hear your story and being brave and courageous enough to share it at this particular point in time. So with that being said, it can take your breath away sometimes, and I'm sure I just heard a gasp from Yolanda, because I know how passionate Yolanda is when it comes to supporting families in particular. But I want to go to Elizabeth. No, I don't. I want to go to Luann, because Luann, it's your son who was in the car crash, right? Luann? Okay, she's gone again.
Yes,
Luann?
I'm here, Kervin.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Okay. We're going to have to stay with it.
Yes.
Please, if we don't stay with it, we're just going to lose track of time. So your son was the one that was in the accident, right?
Yes.
Okay. Just tell us, before you tell us about the accident, tell us a little bit about your son, Tyler.
All right, Tyler was the younger of a set of twins, and the twins were the younger of my 4 children. Tyler left behind a daughter, Maria, and a son, Matthew, his twin sister, Tiffany. He had a heart of gold. He would give anyone the shirt off his back. He had trouble in school because of some complications during childbirth, but he was still very much in favor of education and encouraged people to do their best in school. He was 21 years old. He was at the turning point in his life where he was leaving childhood and his wild teenage years behind and turning into a man and a father, and that was taken from him.
At a very inopportune moment at the prime of his life.
Absolutely.
Okay, so thank you very much for sharing that. We're gonna talk about it again, as I said, in greater details. Let's go to Elizabeth Hawkins Stevens.
Okay.
Your son is Clifford O'Neill Jones.
Right.
And if I give an introduction, when I finish, if you could just tell us a little bit about Clifford as he was growing up before this event took place. It says around 9 p.m. police identified the suspect as 29-year-old Clifford Jones, a suspect in a narcotics investigation in the area this afternoon. Jones was shot at and killed after he drove away from the police and then started shooting at them, according to the Benton Police Department. The police officers involved in the shooting have been placed on administrative leave. That was the introduction that I got on a particular link that I got. But before we talk about this particular or the time or what events, the events that led to him being killed, tell us a little bit about Clifford as a child growing up, from a mother's point of view.
Okay. He always had a good sense of humor, and he found a lot of things funny. He was a beautiful child. He had blonde hair and beautiful brown eyes. And he drove his sister crazy, of course. She was older and he was younger. He did not do well in school because he had attention deficit disorder. So it was always a struggle for him, but he hung in there. He was social. He liked being around a lot of people. And he had a particular dog that he loved very much named Debo. And when he was 18 or 19, I think maybe, he and his wife had their first child. And she is a precious reminder for me of my son. And she has the same quirky sense of humor, which I love.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Let's just quickly move to Margot Cifuentes. Are you there, Margot?
Yes.
Okay, Margot, can you just tell us a little bit about Juan? Did I pronounce it right? Is it Juan?
Yes, sir.
Okay, just tell us a little bit about Juan growing up.
Oh, he was a good child. I mean, he got in trouble for going in the woods with no shoes or sneaking out the door. But we lived in Mississippi when he was growing up, and then he's got a million friends there. And we moved back here in 2001, which I regret every day of it. And he was the normal child. He never had any problems. Now after he got older, he started having nerve problems, and he got in a wreck and had his back messed up. But if he seen a homeless person, he would not stop without giving them money. He would not do it. He said he could not do that. And he even took a man in homeless to live with him when he had his own home.
Okay.
And when he got married, the man come here to live, so he was not homeless.
Okay, we're going to talk about the events that led to his death very shortly. But I just want to quickly rush across to Jacqueline Minifield Brown. How are we doing, Jacqueline?
I'm doing well.
Apart from Yolanda's story, yours is another one that I'll never forget. We covered the loss of Delondre, where they were claiming it was suicide, and then you had a friend of his, Aaliyah, if I remember correctly, who was able to give a better account as to how Delandre met his very tragic and sad end, which is totally contradictory and conflicting with the story given by police. But before we go into the events that led to Delandre losing his life, tell us a little bit about him from a mother's point of view, him growing up, etc. Just remind us, as it's been such a while since we actually covered this story.
Delandre was a normal child.
You're going to need to get closer to your microphone, Jacqueline.
Delandre was he grew up a normal kid, doing the regular boy things. He loved football. He never got in any, out of the way trouble or anything like that. Just normal childhood stuff.
Okay. That's fine. And again, I'm going to just quickly shoot across to Yolanda. Now, I did a brief introduction about Yolanda's daughter, Adesha. But there are other things that I remember quite clearly Yolanda sharing with us, especially about her academics, her hopes and her dreams and her potential. But I'll let Yolanda introduce her daughter, Adesha Miller.
Yes, Adesha was my eldest child, firstborn out of 4. She was the person that wanted everybody to be happy, to enjoy life. Her passion was watching children learn. She was a licensed massage therapist specializing in physical therapy because she didn't want people to hurt. The thing I've noticed about everybody's child is that they had a giving soul, and it was without question or ask. So these truly angels come home. They don't, somebody being an angel is not perfection. Somebody being an angel is doing something without being asked and not looking for something in return. Just doing it because it's the right thing to do. That was Adesha to a fault. She would give you the shirt off her back. Whatever you needed, she would do it. All friends.
You also went on to be the president and founder member of POST, Protect Our Stolen Treasure.
Yes.
Tell us why you started that. Tell us why you started that, and what's that all about? What's the aims of POST?
To help families try to find their way to live after the loved one is gone. No one wants to deal with the aftermath. The government doesn't give a damn what happens to you after. Sometimes family members will turn on you. Sometimes it's just you can't pick yourself up. You need help. And that's what we are there for. We're fighting for justice for our loved ones, but we're also helping the families. We're looking at the bigger picture. We always have. And it's a need out there for folks to know you can take a moment and stop. There's a such thing as making life stop for a minute. So you can at least get yourself together. Yeah. And that's what we're here to do.
Well, at the moment, from what I can gather, you are doing an absolutely fantastic job. And we just look forward to doing more work with you, as there's a lot of stuff being done behind the scenes. Okay, so while we're at it, let's swiftly move on to my producer. I'm gonna keep doing that. My producer.
You stop it already.
Teresa Posselt J. Gallagher. Now, Teresa, you've got a loss of you've got a loss of your own that you've struggled with. And again, I'm going to take my hat off to you, because in the midst of your pain and your struggle, you've decided to come alongside this show, which specializes in working with people that are going through this type of issue, so that you can not just focus on your own, so you can stop focusing on your own pain and help other people get through theirs, which is a very similar sort of thing to what Yolanda's doing. But just tell us a little bit about Travis before we move on.
Travis was just a complete joy to us. his he was active in sports, he was active in church, he he was just a beautiful child. He was close to his brother. He has a sister named Lisa that he's very close, very, very close to. And he never he was always kind and giving, and he was just so loving. And his smile, let me tell you, it would knock your socks off. He was the funniest man I ever knew. And I really miss him. His two children are they're 16 and 17 now. And they lived a lifetime without their father. We try to keep him alive as much as we can. Travis got involved with drugs. Now, he was stopped on a traffic violation, and Travis ran from that because the week before he had been stopped on a traffic violation, and consequently agreed to work with the cops, and then he reneged. And so when he was stopped again, or when his girlfriend was in the car, he got out of the car and started running. And I don't know if it's so much protect and serve by the men in blue. To me, it seemed more like search and destroy, because they said Travis was 57 times over the OD mark of meth. However, the autopsy doesn't agree with that. He says his organs were all healthy, strong, and normal. He got involved with somebody that was involved in a bigger investigation, and an ATF agent was involved to find that other person who consequently had the same name as Travis. Travis was lured into that situation, and the people that have gone to prison over the larger investigation have contacted me through Facebook, and it's been a great honor that I've been able to find answers and stuff through the people that witnessed it. Travis ran, and they chased him down. They hunted him, and then they killed him, all in police custody. Travis was cremated without our permission. Travis, we never did get to see him at all. And with every lawyer that I had, they'd keep me 6-8 months, and then they'd drop me. The big attorney I had was through Dan Rather, of a man named Scott Kamen out of Chicago. Now, we were unaware that we had to have a letter asking for permission to sue the city. But however, they didn't tell us that till I had to go pro se, which was less than 24 hours of the 4-year mark, as if there is a statute of limitations on murder, which there is no statute of limitations on murder. All I can do is keep Travis alive and continue to fight for him, and I will fight for him till his last sunset. He didn't deserve to die. He deserved to feel safe in the custody of police officers. It was a mistaken identity, totally mistaken identity. However, the cop that told the ATF agent to get him, quote unquote, happened to have the vendetta because Travis reneged the week before on working with them. Since then, our family, his children, many of his friends are either suffering from PTSD, which has no cure, and it doesn't pick who it's going to affect, which it affected our entire family and extended family enormously.
Listen, we're going to come back to some of that in a bit. We've got to just bear in mind, as much as I know you are, we can carry on about Travis. And in fact,
well, I'm pretty much done about him.
No, that's fine. It's just, I know you didn't mean to, but I'll tell you what, I hear it all over again. And I think every single one of you would have that much, and if not even more, to say about your loved ones. But we've got 2 hours, and we've got to try and get as much out as we can.
Of course, yeah.
So we're going to come back to you very soon, Teresa. And in fact, we're going to be, for the next few months and years that you're on the show, we're going to hear a lot more about Travis, and I'm quite sure. But first, we're sorry for your loss, but secondly, we just thank you for coming on board and supporting me on issues today and these women as we go forward. Now,
that's my purpose, is to help the women and to help them through. It's been 14 years for me. And, it doesn't get any easier. You never get over it. We just somehow get through it. And with the support of us, to help these women that don't understand quite yet that it doesn't end, that the pain continues, that's my journey. And to help them understand their grief, I just hope that I can the help that's needed.
You will be able to, no doubt. Now, I want to go to Luann, because I'm absolutely intrigued, and I'm no disrespect to any of the stories that we have here, but I've seen the photographs, I've seen the pictures, I've seen the dash cam. Luann, are you there? Hi, Luann. Luann. Okay, Luann's not there. Let's go back to Yolanda. So Yolanda. Hi, Yolanda.
Hi, I'm here.
Okay. So, Teresa was just on about how she's 14 years into this now, and the pain never goes away. Does that resonate with you?
That doesn't go away.
No, yes, it doesn't go away. That's what I said. The pain doesn't go away.
Right. It's very true. It's 6 years. It'll be 7 in July for myself. I know families who have been in it 19, 20 plus years. There's no such thing as the pain of losing your child going away. I find it kind of offensive and insensitive when people say, well, just give it time. You'll be able to get over it or get better. It's like, are you really listening to the words that are coming out of your mouth?
Let's quickly jump over to Jacqueline. Jacqueline, are you there? Hi, Jacqueline.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, so I just want to quickly give us an overview of Delandra's case again, because if I remember correctly, they tried to claim it was suicide, right?
Yes.
Give us a roundup of the story again.
Okay. Delandre was walking down the road with one of his friends. There had been a fight in the neighborhood where somebody had called the police and said that somebody at the fight had a gun, and they called and said that they didn't have a gun. That's why the police were in the area. Keep in mind, they knew the suspect that they were looking for. The description of who they were looking for was the light-skinned male with a jean jacket on. My son is dark-skinned, and he has dreads, and he had on black. However, when they rode past him and his friend, they stopped them and, told them to stop. My son, just like, a lot of other black males, is, we kind of they find a reason to arrest us sometimes. So he ran. When he ran, the first car didn't chase him, but some other police officers that came into the area picked up the call and started pursuing my son and left the other boy on the side of the road. They said, the witness said that Delandre ran jumped over a fence into a yard and went to jump over the second fence to get out of the backyard. And at that time, that's when she heard the gunshot and he slumped onto the fence. The narrative that the police are telling us is that they seen him and he was running towards them. Then he seen one cop and he turned around and then he fell. The police aren't putting him on the fence at all, but everybody there is saying that he was on the fence. So they said that, there's one police officer behind him, one beside him, and they said that he pulled a gun out and shot himself in the back of the head while he was laying on his stomach. One of the officers that was there was actually in training. She had a taser in one hand and her service weapon in the other hand. So the two police officers that were standing around him at that time, their statements don't even agree with whether they heard the shot first or whether she released the taser first or so. But basically, they said, keep in mind, they said he shot himself in the head. Then they said that when they rolled him over, that the gun was underneath of him. So, a lot of things just don't make sense, with his case. That they've changed their story several times. And, it'll be 3 years in February and we're still fighting. We have the lawsuit in court. So we're getting there. We're making a little bit of progress, but, we'll never know the whole truth. But, like the other mother said, those are our babies and, we don't want to let them down. Like, we are their voices. They're not here anymore. The thing that they do with putting out bad information about these young men that are getting shot, as if, whatever they did in the past, like they deserved, to die, and that's why I fight, because it's like, when people see stuff in the news, they believe it. And, if you don't ever investigate or look into it yourself, you never know the truth.
True story.
Yeah.
The bottom line is you women are going through your own stuff, but day in and day out, you're seeing new stories featured. You're seeing new people going through what you're going through. You're seeing new victims at the hands of these law enforcement officers. Did you ever imagine at the point of when you found when your loved one was killed, did you ever imagine that the problem was as big as what you've now discovered it to be? First of all, I won't ask Yolanda this first. I'll ask Elizabeth first. If you could answer that one for us. Did you realize that the problem of unlawful killing or killed by cops was as huge as it was before you lost your loved one?
I did, because I've always thought that it was a problem, or I recognized it as a social problem, with police officers killing unarmed Black men in America. And I knew that, and it was horrifying. And I actually told my children, my sons, always comply, be pleasant, do exactly what they say, show your hands. So, yes. And especially in the county in Arkansas where my son was killed, yes, it was a problem.
Tell us some more about it, Elizabeth. Tell us the circumstances. What led up? What was going on prior to your son being involved and engaged in this confrontation or situation that eventually cost him his life?
Well, the police department in Benton, Arkansas, was doing end-of-month roundup on warrants, outstanding warrants. And the official narrative is that it was a case of mistaken identity when they saw my son. They had an outstanding warrant for domestic abuse. And my son happened to be parked in a truck that matched the description on the warrant by the woman's house who filed the complaint, although he was loading his Corvette onto a car trailer to take it somewhere. So the police started following him around this small town, and eventually my son, I guess, got spooked, and he started going, he started speeding. And so That, according to the narrative again, that started a high-speed chase that led to the access road to the freeway, where the police had already anticipated the route my son would take for some reason, and they put down the tire deflators. So at this point, they said my son started shooting at them, so they started shooting at him. And my son eventually, I guess, was shot enough and ran over the tire deflators that he hit the median wall in the freeway, and his truck came to a stop. And that was not enough. They had 2 police officers that got out of their vehicle and went over and shot my son at point blank range. He was shot 8 times, and he was disabled in the truck, I'm sure, at the point where the 2 officers shot him point blank. Both officers received commendations the next year for that murder. And then one of them went on to kill a 17-year-old boy 2.5 years later.
How does that make you feel when you hear that somebody has actually been awarded some sort of bravery award for killing your son?
Yeah, it's so ridiculous that, I mean, it's just almost incomprehensible that they did that and that they were awarded for that. And I hear that all the time. I hear that after police officers murder people, they're awarded commendations for it, as if protecting the public from someone so violently dangerous that they have hunted down and killed.
Yolanda, let me just bring in Yolanda a minute. As president of Protect Our Stolen Treasures, and I know that we're looking at another situation, or we're another group of people that we're working with at the minute, and we're looking at police reform. Is this insensitivity of rewarding or awarding officers that have killed individuals, is this something that needs to be reviewed and dealt with? Because I would struggle, whether my son was guilty or not, whether my child had committed a crime or not. The fact that you've killed somebody, to be given an award, a medal, and held up high for taking another life, is that something that should be rewarded?
Absolutely not. And let me go back to your first question about, did I know at the time that my child was killed how much of it was going on? I knew it was going on, but you don't have any real clue as to how. This is a pandemic situation, and it didn't just get there.
Yeah.
But the thing is, it's so underreported and misreported. The only reason we have the knowledge that we have now is that we have smartphones that can videotape things happening. That police officers are getting caught up in their lives because every then and again you'll get somebody on the review board that's got enough heart to question what they say. But in Detroit, officer shot and killed the 7-year-old girl. His reward was a promotion. Not only a promotion, this Caucasian officer who shot this black 7-year-old girl while she was sleeping was promoted to the head of race relations for the police department. So the craziness has no real boundaries, and truly crazy is not even a definition for it.
And it happens everywhere. Everywhere. They're all the same.
This is what we have to fight. And this is what why we work together. They don't count on us being able to work together. Then they say, well, we'll make it a race issue. No, because last time I checked, bullets don't have a color. The grave don't care what color you are when you get in there.
That's right. That's right.
So it's not a race thing. We know that y'all target races. We know that y'all target people that y'all feel are throwaway. But we're not in that game with you. Okay, so that's what they need to understand about us, about POST, about Families United for Justice, about all these other organizations, that we will come together and work together to stop them. And it's coming.
That's right.
That's very powerful, Yolanda, and it's it's also something that I'm 100% in support of, because it's not a race issue. You're having, Latinos, blacks, whites. I remember featuring very early when I started doing this show over 4 years ago. I don't know if you guys would have heard about it, but the guy, you may well do. The guy's name was Kelly Thomas, and he was a homeless guy. And the video, a white homeless guy with mental health issues, and he was sat on the pavement by a bus station, and the video, the CCTV, shows the police officer arrive and put on rubber gloves before they pounded with his fist Kelly Thomas to death. Just kept punching him, killed this homeless guy. So you're quite right. The grave doesn't care what colour you are, and although I would say that if you're black, that's just one more excuse for them to attack you or try and kill you. It's not the only reason they kill. They kill because they can. They kill because they believe that they can get away with it.
That's exactly right.
Right?
Yes.
And it doesn't matter what color you are, they take no prisoners. So, we hear issues today, and I know for sure Yolanda and the organizations that she supports, this is not a race issue. This is a police brutality issue, and they don't care who they take prisoner and kill. So,
and then when they get away with it, oh my gosh, it's like it just explodes around the country. All the cops think they can get away with it.
Yep.
Well, right now they can, but the problem is they do it over and over again. They're habitual killers, and it's being ignored. Everybody wants to say, well, that was a different circumstance. Well, if you beat a person, you tase a person, you shoot a person, you drown a person, you run them over, you chase them in the traffic, you have them chewed up by a dog. Those are all different situations, but they all end up dead. It doesn't make a difference to them, even if all that comes from the same hand.
Yeah. Excessive force, all that unnecessary things. I'd like to go back to Elizabeth. Are you still there?
Yes.
Elizabeth?
Yes,
okay.
I'm here.
You mentioned to me when I spoke with you today that the autopsy said that it was homicide.
Yes.
Hello? If it's
okay, yeah, we've got you back, Luann. So just stand by. We'll be bringing you back in very shortly. Okay.
Awesome. Okay. So Elizabeth's an autopsy report. The reason for death was homicide.
Yes.
Now her child did not commit homicide on himself, and those police officers were promoted.
Right. Yeah, you're right.
What's wrong with that story? You know what I'm saying?
I'll tell you I'll tell you what's wrong with that story is that we've witnessed time in and time out on every case that we've looked at the way that the police fabricate the evidence. There is, and I forget what the time span is. But you would get a minuscule amount of time in order for you to get your story together with the police. There is a time of abstinence where they're not asked any questions outside of the police station, so to speak, and they've got an opportunity to get their story straight with the sergeant, with the.
They don't even get that, Kervin. They don't even get them straight then.
No, it's not that they get them straight. The bottom line, what I'm talking is, they get time to fabricate. They get time to piece it together and make it sound as favourable to them as they can, which is what they're trying to do. Right. And in doing that, they've got the opportunity because they also have available to them all the resources that have pulled in all the evidence. So they, as natural as it may look, like they killed this individual, they've got enough information to make it look like they might not have. Whereas you don't have access. We wouldn't have access to that sort of information and resources for us to be able to, because not everybody remembers everything about everything they do. And there's little bits and pieces that we might forget. So you might be a witness when a police officer killed an individual, and you might be able to remember most things that you saw. But if you had available to you all the other statements, if you had available to you all the other things that people said, then those things might prompt you to remember something that you forgot to say when you first saw it, right? So how I can compare that is, if you imagine a movie that you've watched 100 times. Every time you watch the movie, you spot something that you don't remember seeing the last time you watched the movie. You hear a sentence that you don't remember hearing the last time you watched the movie, because we're fallible, we're human, we make that mistakes, right? But we don't get the opportunity to get access to all the information and the resources that would refresh our minds and memories, so that we can be prompted to remember what it was that we actually saw. So therefore, there are blanks in our story that they are able to manipulate.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah, and they do. Yeah.
Right? Whereas for them, they've got access to the whole pool of information. They've got everybody's statements. They've got all the forensics, and they've got all the evidence to put it together to make it favorable for them. And they've got the time to achieve it.
Also, Kervin, we have the right as citizens to send a FOIA, Freedom of Information Acts, for each of those reports. And we too can analyze that, and we too can find discrepancies that might help us. And
but as a victim, Teresa, you find it very difficult to get anybody to accept your findings, whereas they're finding.
If it's black and white in a police report, then it's not. It is what it is. Yeah. If it's in a police report, and we have the options to contact all these agencies, the hospital, the police station, the county attorneys, the attorney generals, to get every bit of information that they have on the child. Now, it would be, in my opinion, that if we didn't pursue that, then we're kind of like one step behind, and they don't want us to pursue it.
No.
Right.
We need to if we can quickly jump into Luann, because Luann got cut off, and I really wanted to go into what took place in Darlington County. It says here, a pursuit involving a Darlington County Sheriff's deputy led to a fatal crash on Old Camden Road in Darlington County around 2:30 a.m. Wednesday morning, according to DCSO Sheriff Wayne Bird. Tell us what you know.
What I know is that my son hit a guardrail and overturned, and that the officer who was allegedly in pursuit of Tyler for speeding smashed into the overturned car. The overturned car was in the oncoming lane, and the officer lived on that road and was familiar with that road, and could have easily, had he been in control of his vehicle, avoided hitting the overturned car. I also know, according to the autopsy, that every injury was on the right side of the body, and that was the side that the officer hit. I know that my son and his passenger had to be cut out of the seatbelts. I know that the airbags properly deployed. So what I feel as a mom is that my son and his passenger were trapped in an overturned car with seatbelts and airbags, and that the officer negligently, at an excessively high rate of speed, plowed into them, and it was completely avoidable.
So what year was that? Because I can't see on here on this story that I'm reading, it doesn't tell you what year. 2014.
2000.
Okay,
yes,
so
April 2nd.
I'm not sure what year your legislations would have changed out there in America, but I'm quite sure around 2014 it would have been around a time where those high-speed pursuits were almost outlawed, and police were basically requested, commanded even, to step back and try and find another way to stop the vehicle, right?
There were several high-profile cases in the Southeast around that time. I believe that things might have changed after my son was killed, but currently Darlington County, and to my knowledge, South Carolina, does not currently have a high-speed chase policy.
Wow. Is that something that you're going to be looking to pursue and use, at least try and use Tyler's death as in a positive?
That is one of the things that we were trying to pursue, yes, was a change in policy so that nobody else's child had to die in a high-speed chase. Yeah, speeding is illegal. We all do it at some point, but the penalty for speeding is a ticket, a fine, a fee, perhaps even some jail time, but not death.
Yeah.
Right.
So, Yolanda. Hi, Loan.
Yes, sir. Hey.
In the work that you're doing, is that something that you're going to be looking to support Luann with? Because for me, if there are areas, if there are states, if there are places where it's now outlawed for high speed pursuits, then surely we should be trying to find a way to use that as a reform action.
Absolutely. We're going through the same thing here in Michigan. The city of Detroit, high-speed pursuits have ended up with children playing in the yard being plowed down by the vehicle. Not just the vehicle that they were pursuing, but the police officers as well. And dying. We have to stop this. Chasing a person for something that is okay. If they don't have a kidnapped victim in the car, they aren't shooting out their vehicle at people randomly. There's no reason for you to be in a high-speed pursuit. They chase vehicles over stolen money. It's paper. Man assigns the value to paper. It's just paper. Leave it alone. It's not worth someone's life. But yeah, that is something that we definitely will be backing her on and backing others with. No problem. We have to call out and point to and not only say this is wrong, but show them what we mean by right on these issues in order to get them changed. We can't sit up there and just say, well, this is a problem. Y'all need to fix it. Because the first thing they're going to come out their mouth with is, okay, so what's the solution? And if your first response is, you lost it. You already lost the fight. It's no longer even an issue to them. So, when we go out and we say something or do something or have an action, we already thought it through from beginning to end. Like I said, I'm a big screen kind of thinker. I don't just go narrow tunnel. This is it. I want to just get the thing done. I'm looking at the peripheral and the other things that come along with it and will be affected by it. Because, see, what they fail to accept is the fact that everything that they do is a domino effect. I think each one teach one. That go for the police officers too. Each time you see a bad cop teach a good cop a bad habit, you're losing. So you have to stop that from happening. We also have to strengthen ourselves and strengthen our sisters and our brothers in this. That knowledge is king. It's not a joke. The best thing you can do is be knowledgeable about the situation.
That's right.
They need to be held accountable and stop rewarding the bad behavior, because the officer involved in my son's death was also promoted to an investigator, which gives him access to the evidence in the case.
Wonderful.
Do me a favor, when you go to start speaking, just say hi. This is Luann, this is Elizabeth, so we know who's on the line at the time and what it's related to. Because I was just lost for a second. I just wanted to quickly go to Margot and Jacqueline in particular, because their two cases are slightly different. Both of them, and correct me if I'm wrong, Margot. Were they claiming that your son committed suicide?
Oh no, they said they didn't. They couldn't figure out why the inmate died, but they knew because they beat him repeatedly and called him a wetback. And he took medication for his nerves, and he was in a car wreck and his back was hurt. And he had the medication on him at the time that they got him at Walmart, and they never give him one pill. Nothing. Every time he would ask for it, they would tell him, "You're not getting high on my time." I had an appointment to see him. They told me I did not have an appointment. They only let my daughter see him. And he told my daughter, "Please tell them that I'm not a wetback, I'm from here." Because he was Hispanic and Indian. And some white, I guess. I got white and Indian me.
So
they just classify.
Yeah,
that was me.
So Juan Cifuentes was beaten by prison guard.
11 witnesses that was in jail that was in there with him. And he was in infirmity, or what we call it, for sick people. They said every time he asked, they would come and beat him and beat his head on concrete walls and beat him and beat him. They took him in the nurse's station 4 times. Then when they finally got sick, they threw him in the drunk tank.
Okay, let me just stop you 1 second. Right, we've got 7 people on this call, but while we're talking, there's something else going on in the background that really is interfering with the call. There's somebody else talking. There's people talking in the background, and we just really need that to kind of stop. Otherwise, we're going to get no clarity here. Sorry, carry on, Margot.
He was married. His wife, him and his wife had 2 children. His son was only 5 months old. His daughter was like 1.5 years. And she said she did not want no justice because she never wanted her kids made fun of at school. To this day, he does not have a headstone on his grave. But she says her father owns that land. She's not letting no one do that.
So on another note, Jacqueline, they tried to claim that DeLandre committed suicide.
Yes.
In fact,
they tried to say
ridiculously so that he shot himself in the head while falling down and laying on his stomach.
Laying on his stomach. Right.
Which is practically
and then
impossible.
The gun was underneath of him when they rolled him over.
And this is what Leah, and I remember reading this in the first place, but this is what his friend Elias said happened next. So here's what he says. I'll just read this. On the same day that police reaffirmed the initial report that Minifield died of a self-inflicted gunshot wound, 18-year-old Aaliyah Green says she helped put the demonstration together. She was friends with DeLandre about 2 years. Green added that DeLandre had been at her house moments before the incident occurred, and even though she didn't see how Minifield died, she says she saw what unfolded just before. Another friend from the fight came back and got him, and then they went walking down the street, and the police told them to stop. Well, he didn't stop, he kept running, said the friend of DeLandre Minifield, Aaliyah Green. And this is what she says happens next. Another police car pulled up, and 3 police jumped out the car and pulled a gun, and 1 pulled the taser, and he was running. And as he jumped over the first fence, they shot the taser. And when he jumped over the second fence, you hear a gunshot, and all we see is him laid over the fence, and then a whole bunch of police officers run and pull him off the fence, and then slam him on the ground and start doing CPR. Virginia State Police, in conjunction with the medical examiner's officer, say they continue to investigate the case as a suicide, and that an investigation shows that no officers fired their weapons during the incident. Now, when you have an eyewitness who says that A, they fired a taser, and B, that you heard the gunshot just before he fell, and then the investigation claims that no officer fired their weapon. Is that... Did you find that easy to believe, Jacqueline, or...
Yeah, none of it made sense to me, because the police wouldn't talk to us at all. It took us 3 days to get the police to even talk to us about what happened. They released stories into the newspaper, before we even got up there. They had done the autopsy by the time we got up there, and all we had to go by was what was in the paper and what his friends were saying. And we're like, how does somebody shoot themselves in the back of the head? and over the next 2 weeks or so, there's the police's story actually changed 3 times. So if it's a simple suicide, why is your story changing so many times? Like, a suicide is a suicide. They let us get any information. They wouldn't talk to us. A suicide is just that. What are you trying to hide? So we were frustrated. We had to protest in the streets for like 2 or 3 days. And, as you mothers, when you find out that your child's gone, you don't know why, you can't get answers. And then, you're having to march outside, yelling for your child. It's just, it's a lot. And people don't realize when these young kids get shot or whatever happens to them at the hands of the police, it's just the beginning for us. Like, that's just the beginning. It continues and continues and continues. The autopsies, the lawyers, the crime scene photos. It never stopped.
It was 2000. It was 2000. 2016. 2000. It was 2016, right?
Yes, February 28th, 2016.
And 2 years later, you're still no closer to getting to the truth.
Right. We have gotten some information, but there's some information from the Virginia State Police that they put a protective order on that we can't get. And I don't understand why, because like I said, if it's a suicide, why are you all protecting and not releasing this information to us? We found out a lot of things since we got that evidence. They let him lay out there from 4 p.m. until 1 o'clock that night, handcuffed. They didn't take him to the medical examiner's office that night, come to find out. They took him to a funeral home, and then they took him to the medical examiner's office the next day. So, it's just a lot of stuff that wasn't followed, to be protocol. And, the story just doesn't make sense. And, everybody that knew Landre or DeLandre, the boy was full of life. One of the other mothers was talking about her son and how he joked and everything. Anytime my son was around, everybody was laughing. Anytime I even show people a picture of him, they're like, he was funny, wasn't he? And I was like, yes, he was. He always had everybody laughing. So, it's a lot. And give you mothers, hands up, because you guys have been doing it a long time. And I see how hard it is, in the first couple of years. It's devastating to try to realize that your child's gone, and then, try to fight the rest of the world and let everybody else see that, this can happen to anybody. It's not just us. It's not just big cities. My son got killed in a very small city that you would never think anything would happen. There's hardly any, homicides or anything in that town. And, you're supposed to be safe in these small towns, but it's not that way anymore. No. People tell me I'm being negative when I try to tell them, be prepared. But it's like, nobody wants to think of that. And I understand why, but, we got to raise awareness as to, we got to let our children be safe,
Let me just fire that question at you that I've already fired at several others prior to this, because you've just said that it's a very small city. It's not what you'd have expected where you are. It's a predominantly safe city. Were you aware of the extent of unlawful killings or killed by cops that were taking place, not just against young black men in particular, but against citizens of all different races? Were you aware of the vast amount of numbers of people that were being unlawfully killed by cops prior to DeLandre being shot and killed by police?
I absolutely was not aware that it was to the extent that it is, because, if you watch the news, you see the big cases, Trayvon Martin, you see the ones that make the news, but there's so many more. Like, there's hundreds and hundreds of more, kids that have gotten killed that hasn't made the news. It's not in the media. The parents, they kind of expect that, if these are, poor kids and, families don't have the money to fight, that they're going to just get away with it because we don't have the money to go out here and hire the high priced lawyers and all that stuff. So it just gets brushed under the rug. So I definitely wasn't aware that it was, to the extent that it is. But it's really, it's really bad.
Yolanda, the Freedom of Information Act is supposed to support people in getting information about anything, about any case or any. Yet we're constantly, over and over again, hearing from parents who've lost a loved one and are finding it difficult to get the information that they're asking or requesting. Is that common ground? Is that common practice?
Yeah, unfortunately, the Freedom of Information Act is based on what the cops want you to know still. You can file those papers, and again, you will be denied. I've done it 3 different times. 2 other people have done it as well, because one of the things happening with my daughter's case is the fact that they redact a lot of stuff, and then they forget what they redacted because they're not smart enough to copy it. you know. So when you report again, they try to figure out what they redacted last time and do it, and some of that stuff's not coming. I'm getting more information. But this last time I did it was probably 2016. And they actually had the audacity to tell me that they didn't have anybody by the name of Adesha Marisha Devin Miller killed in Detroit by a police officer with a birth date of July 8th, 2012. And I'm like, excuse me, I know damn well I'm not about to forget when my baby was born, seeing that she was murdered the day before her birthday. So since they transposed the date, or just totally ignored July 9th, 1987, and just chose that date, her date of death is supposed to be her birthday. They don't have a record of her. I'm like, I know good and well there's no other Adesha Marisha Devin Miller in the state of Michigan. Come on. The name is too unique. But they will change things, remove things, deny you. I even have a letter from the state troopers where I just unfortunately had to scan in 160 pages of my daughter's case into my computer. Was a letter from the state trooper saying that they didn't even come out and investigate. And by law, anything that happens with the police department in the city of Detroit, well, actually in the state of Michigan, the state troopers are supposed to come out and investigate. So y'all didn't do that.
So there's a continual disruption or denial. And here's the thing. How could it be the Freedom of Information Act if they've still got the right to deny you? I'm at a loss.
Well, I mean, that's just like all men are created equal unless you wear a badge. Then you're a superhero, you're untouchable, and you're infallible. You're basically a god. Because you get to choose who lives and who dies. Mm-hmm. You get to choose who's free and who's not. And then you choose who you want to make continuously suffer by coming after these families and doing things. And let's not forget what they do after your child or your husband or your parent has been murdered.
The strangest thing about
this... They will come back to your home and harass you. Mm. They will come to your neighborhood and harass you, your job. They will ride by, stop by your house, sit in front of your home and harass you. And then dare you to say something to them about it. Because here's the thing. Who do you go to when you're being harassed?
Mm-hmm. The police.
Right. So how do you go to the police on the police when you know they don't do anything anyway?
It's a pointless exercise, isn't it?
Right. And see, what it is trying to force you into seeing that you don't have anybody to go to, but they do. We're here. We're here. So they got somewhere to go. We're here, and we're not going away.
Elizabeth.
Yes.
Do you know Clifford started driving away or speeding away because he was concerned that he was being followed or whatever. And then you also said that he started firing at the police. Was that before? Do you know what was you aware of whether it was before they started firing at him or did he start firing first?
That's according to the official report. We never got anyone to look at the dash cam video because no one would touch it for us. We didn't know the rules then of how all law enforcement works together, and they don't, and even the attorneys They don't break apart from that. So according to the police report, when Cliff was on the access road trying to get on the freeway, he shot at police first, according to them.
Is that what you think? Is it possible that he would have done that? Is he like that? Is that the sort of thing he would have done?
No, I don't think so. Everyone, it's not everyone, but some people in my family have guns, and Cliff always had one in his truck, and he had a right to carry it. But I don't think he would have shot police officers. He'd had some minor run-ins, but I don't think he would have shot at police. That's my feeling as a mother.
So here's the thing. You say he had some run-ins. Now, we're not going to try and paint anybody out to be angels when they're not, but people still need to die with dignity. Just go through some of these type of run-ins that he'd had with law enforcement, please.
Well, this was in Benton, which is south of Little Rock, the state capital. And about, let's see, he died in July. I think it was February. Someone in his neighborhood called in a fictitious report. And they call that swatting. They sent the SWAT team out to my son's house. And what had happened is my son and his girlfriend were having an argument. But someone made it out to be this big thing. And so they sent the SWAT team out to his house. Well, Little Rock and Benton are only 20 miles apart. And, I think Teresa and I were talking about this today, but how police departments communicate with one another. Mm-hmm. And so I'm sure Benton police knew, and they could access that anyway through a state database, that, this had happened, the SWAT incident. So that, but beyond that, when he was maybe 19, 20, he had gotten pulled over for DUIs, driving under the influence. So that's it, as far as I can remember.
Let's just, and I've done this for a reason. Let's just humor me for a minute. I've got 6 people on the call here. So here's 6 of us, and please try to be as unbiased as you possibly can. So Elizabeth has just told us a little bit about her son, DUI and a couple of other bits and pieces. No gang banging, no attempted murders, no biggies, no. He was working in a full-time job, which shows that he was a person of responsibility and at least a reasonable, decent amount of integrity, because you got nations across the world full of people that are just sitting on sofas expecting mum and dad to pick up the tab. So when you've got an individual that's working a full-time job, he's got to have something about him, right? So if we were the jury, or we were sitting down on a committee or subcommittee reviewing this information that we're looking at, would we believe that Clifford O'Neill Jones opened fire on the police, knowing that they were the police, and he was outnumbered not just in body but in firearms, because every single one of them had a gun? Would we believe? And in fact, before you answer that question, on the autopsy, did they find any drugs or alcohol in his system, Elizabeth?
No, they didn't.
So they can't even claim that he was deranged, deluded, or under the influence. So somebody in their right mind, right, who was spooked by being followed and chased, opened fire, not knowing potentially, were they undercover, plainclothes in the car, or they?
Oh no, it was. By that time, there were. I want to say, Teresa, you asked me this morning. I want to say, I looked it up. There were 3 or 4 police cars behind him at that point. And yeah, they were in police cars, official police cars.
But do we believe, if we were the jury, that somebody of his type of character and stature, bearing in mind that he came from a reasonable family, a good family, he was working, so his morals and principles were in the right place. Do we believe somebody like that with no prior convictions of any sort that would tie him up with gangs, gangland behavior or gangland mentality, open fire and put his own life at risk, knowing that these officers are trained to shoot to kill?
Absolutely not.
Is there anybody here that believes that that's what he would have done?
No.
So Elizabeth, tell me what organization, what group, what panel agreed that that's what he did.
Benton Police Department. That's it. And
the government.
And they would not. Again, we could not see the dash cam footage, and it took me 18 months to get the police report that made that statement. So, yeah, it was just the police department. And then, of course, their prosecuting or city attorney confirmed their findings that they were perfectly within their right to shoot him.
Here's the thing. Adacia Miller died shortly after arriving at a party for an undercover, an off-duty police officer. And in their report, they claimed that she reached for his gun and shot herself. Prior to that, right, she was meant to be trying to do some sort of a lap dance on him while his wife was present and getting angry, I would have imagined, because unless the wife had paid for a masseuse or a strip dancer or for his birthday, she would have been... Because I'll tell you something, if I was having a party in my garden now and some woman started to wind herself up on me, my wife would lamp me and then lamp her, if you get my drift. Right? So I'm just wondering, what, and I suppose I'll throw that in your direction. What was they trying to accomplish by insinuating that Adacia was trying to put out a lap dance on this guy, and then in the heat of that moment, right, reached for his gun, which was strapped to his holster, and shot herself?
Right.
But they're asking
First
you.
thing they do,
Yeah, go ahead, Yolanda.
Discredit her. Like I say all the time, they victimize the victim.
Yes.
That's like their specialty. But the thing is to try to make my daughter look less than human. That is their goal. They do not want anyone to be portrayed or looked at as being human, because that would be cruel. That would be wrong that they killed them. It's not a big deal if they're human. It's just one of those things that, they should have known better or whatever. It's always the victim's fault that they got shot and killed. When all my sister did was be invited to a party at a place she didn't know, with a person she didn't know. I mean, go with people that she thought were her friends, but the owner of the home she didn't know. And then now she's the victim, and she's the person that's being portrayed as less than. So I mean, they do that all the time, and unfortunately, we get used to it. We expect it, and we know that it's something that we're going to have to deflect. But it's something that they do, because they don't want you to look at it as you just killed a human being that was an innocent person. Even with Ayanna, 7-year-old girl sleeping on the couch, the cop said, I thought she was a pile of dirty clothes. I thought that she was a dog. I didn't know that was a human being laying there.
How do you think that left the mother feeling? You've just killed my daughter, and you've just referred to her as a pack of dirty clothes.
Dehumanizing. it's meant to dehumanize, not just the ones that lose their lives, but the ones that lose them. You're not worthy, and it's despicable. And the sad part is the government sanctions it, and then we have news media that perpetuates it. That's you have to be very cautious of who you talk to and who you deal with, and because I refer to reporters as vultures. They're there to pick the bones clean, to sensationalize it. I looked up and got a hold of a couple of reporters who actually were about their business. So my daughter's story got out there a little differently than a lot of people. They asked questions, but 9 times out of 10, the more they can do to make you less human, the more they're gonna do.
Do you know, in everything that we've heard so far today, we've heard how we've talking to a group of mothers who've lost their loved ones, in losing their loved ones, and we see it repetitively over and over again, don't we, Yolanda, where the criminalization and the dehumanization of these victims are multiplied. How they make them out to be criminals with a criminal sort of like mindset and behavior, and for me that just delays the grieving process for the mother, because you don't get to grieve right now because you're busy fighting for justice.
Exactly. It puts you immediately in fight mode. But it's kind of like that's part of their game to get their jolly. And I'm gonna just say it like that. They
want to break you down.
They want, because they can make you weak. You won't fight. Yeah. Y'all should have Googled me first, because you got the right one. I'm a fighter.
Do you know, Therese, you've been doing this for 14 years now. All right. Have you felt like giving up at any point?
Oh, my Lord. Giving up to the point where I'm going to stop, no. But walking away for a minute and catching my breath, absolutely. It's so devastating. It's so mind-boggling. It's so unconstitutional for the way that these people that run our country ignore the Constitution. It is the most painful thing that I've had to endure, losing Trav and watching my family fall apart, and knowing that these cops, they're 9 times out of 10 they'll get away with it. One of the cops that killed Trav, the first thing he wanted was Garrity. Now, if you didn't do anything wrong, why would you ask for Garrity? It just, and when you were mentioning about women, with me in my case, before Travis died, I didn't know about other people that were killed by cops. I didn't think about the people that were killed by police officers. I never dreamt that could happen. I raised my children to trust the police. If you got a problem, you go to the police. Well, now, my grandchildren, I do not tell them that. It is so devastating, but the grief, it has no time limit. It just is right there. And you can't prepare to, I'm going to grieve tomorrow at 2:00. It is there. It is real. It takes you to your knees. And for me to get up, sometimes it takes weeks. And I don't ever think I'll be as strong as I definitely will never be the same person. How could I?
Margot. Hi, Margot.
Hi.
In listening to all of these stories that you're hearing from these other women, were you aware of the widespread unlawful killing that was being committed by cops against innocent individuals prior to your son losing his life?
No, I was never aware of that. Never.
So,
after that, I got on these groups and I found out so much. I mean, I couldn't believe it.
Right.
And so I take it now that you're reading more and more, you're hearing more and more about cases where cops have killed.
Sir. Every day.
And how has that left you feeling, Margot?
It leaves me feeling empty but full to fight.
Okay. So, Yolanda, as you continue to support these mothers, how do you advise them going forward when they just keep having door after door being shut?
Pace yourself. Don't lie to yourself about your pain. Don't deny that it's there. Don't try to pretend that you can push through it all the time, because we can push it back. We can, for lack of a better word, swallow it and deal with what we got to deal with. But don't deny yourself the right to cry. Don't deny yourself the right to feel or to be hurt, or tell people to leave you alone. There's nothing wrong with telling people leave you alone, because that's what you want and that's what you need.
Exactly. I have to do that so much.
Right, but you have to pace yourself, and you got a right to fight for your baby. When people ask me how do I keep doing it, I tell them I birthed her, so I sure as hell can fight for her, and that's just a fact. If I went through the labor to get her here, I can do everything else. That's easy.
That's right.
And there's so many people, there's so many mothers and fathers that are intimidated by the police, that are scared to continue to fight.
Right, but see, I tell them all the time, I can fight with you, but I won't fight for you, because you have to fight for yours. I'm too busy fighting for mine. Okay, but that's saying that I won't take time out of my fight to help you. I have no problem with that. But people have to.
Well, I've had a few calls.
Y'all get tired. Don't deny yourself not being human. Don't tell yourself you're not human or you're less than or you're a bad parent because you got tired. Damn it, get tired, but get back up. There ain't nothing wrong with taking a break.
That's right.
That's what I tell
and we need breaks. We need breaks so we don't have a breakdown.
I've had several of them.
Right, but look at you, you're still here. So you get back up. You don't give up.
I've had a week go by and I don't even know who I am. I mean, I'm just like I'm in another world.
It's like that's grief in it. And grief is it's a tough thing.
Grief is something that we may spend our whole lives trying to get round and we'll still never understand. But when you're being met with lies, deceit, corruption, and untruths, it's very difficult for you to comprehend your grief while you're still busy fighting the fight. And
it's preposterous.
Yeah.
See, the night my son passed, his wife called me and told me that they was up there hitting on him. And she said his friends told her because he couldn't talk right. And she said, "Does that make you feel better?" I said, No, the hell it don't. I'm getting him out in the morning. And then I got a call that night, and they told me to go to the hospital because he fell out, and he was gone. And I know his hands was broke. They would not even let me touch him. They don't let me look. I made them uncover him.
How long was he gone before you were called and contacted?
He had been gone a while, I know, because he was just had too much blow on him. He had been gone a while.
Like hours or like minutes or?
I would say hours.
Before they contacted you?
Yeah, then they took him. Well, they put him in a drunk tank, and then they took him to the hospital. And then they called me and told me to go up to the hospital that he had fell out. And I kept asking them, "Is he okay now?" And they never would answer me. They told me to go to the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
And his wife never come to the hospital that night. Never.
Mm.
I suppose
why did she come?
I don't know. She doesn't speak to me because she told me that if he ever cheated on her, that's what he deserved. I know he never cheated on that woman. He loved her with everything.
Yeah, so there were some relationship problems there then.
She doesn't even let me see the children. She told me, no, I'm toxic to them.
Well, you can go to court for that, right? Go to
No,
court.
in Illinois, they don't have no grandparents' law.
Oh.
Now, my oldest granddaughter, before he got married, I can get her anytime I want her. She stays with me most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know, it's...
I'm sure sorry that happens.
Here's the thing. I think we're all sorry that it happens. I think we're even more sorry that we find it very difficult to be able to do anything about it. And no matter what we do, it seems to have very little impact. Again, you know, as an individual, you would have thought every time you get a new president, for example, you know, you've just had Trump. Prior to that, you had Obama. But as the White House transitions with new presidents, do you guys move into a different level of hope that something's going to happen now? Of course. So you've been in there for a few years, and Yolanda, you've been in there for a few years. So you've seen a change of presidency in the time that you've been grieving over your loved one and fighting for justice. Has the change of presidency given you a new input of hope at the time?
No, Dread. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do it like that, but no, definitely not. Trump is God. I actually said his name. I usually call him that orange thing because I don't like calling it by name. But that gives you the worst feeling ever. Pick your moment where your dread was at its absolute worst and then multiply it by 10,000 and you're getting close.
Well, I think that there's always hope that maybe the president will do something different. I think there's always hope.
He told him to use more power.
He's a hate monger.
Here's the thing. Without thinking that we're going to be judgmental, is there anybody in this chat room that voted for Trump?
No, not me.
No.
A unanimous no. So if we were to poll a survey, right, it'd be 0%.
Right.
Yes.
But it makes you wonder, if you can get a group of people together and all of them would have said no, where did they get their yeses from?
Right.
Inside.
And the reason I say that is it's quite simple. In life, we often hear about scientific and medical and life surveys, whether it's about blacks, Hispanics, Latinos, whites, or whatever, and it will say something like 8 out of 10 black men have huge, 6 out of 10 white men go to the pub and drink beer. I'm not saying that those are the stats. I'm just saying, for example, and then you look around and you think to yourself, well, I don't know anybody that fits that criteria that they've got their outcome for their survey with. So where did they get their stats from? Do you understand what I'm saying here?
Yeah, they buy their vote. They have lobbyists and stuff. You know, it's a good old thing, voice system all the way up.
For example, I've been a DJ for over 40 years, and here in this country, they used to print the top 20 chart tracks in the national newspapers at the beginning of every week. And on my radio show, my music radio show that I used to do 20, 30 odd years ago, I used to look at that chart, and there wasn't a single track in there that I would buy, let alone play. But yet, there's a number one in there that they're saying is the choice of the nation. And then I used to do my own survey on my show, and nobody that listened to my show, they might have been lying, but none of them admitted or said that, yeah, I bought this. And yet you had to sell a certain amount to get to number one. And so The point I'm trying to make is we're continually lied to, right?
Right.
Reports and stuff are continually manipulated and changed and had modifications made to them in order to make it look like a certain thing. And it's one of the main reasons why you've got so many different ethnicities and cultures that find it difficult to get along, because there is a propaganda that's being spread, right? I saw Yolanda put up a post, and it had a photo. It had Larry Fishburne, and it said something like, "If all black men were as violent as the white people said they were, right, there wouldn't be any white people left." And
all those killers is out here killing people everywhere. They're all white, so they got that all mixed up wrong.
So the point I'm making is, when you look at what you guys are going through, right, it's no different to the standard that the whole nation, in fact the whole world, is governed with: lies and continual lies. Is there any surprise that after a police officer has unlawfully killed an individual, that what's going to come out next is nothing but lies?
Right.
But somebody believes it. I'm going to beg to differ here. I don't actually think it's somebody believes it. I think it's they choose to believe it.
Mm-hmm.
I can't believe for a single minute that they actually believe it. Because,
well, you know, them killers never get killed. They always live when they get them. They never kill them white guys when they catch them.
That's not true. My son was white.
Oh, I'm saying the ones shooting up these churches and shooting up these places, they catch them, they never kill them.
Yeah, right. Like Ruby Ridge or.
What we're trying is, I totally get what you're saying, Margot, and Teresa, I get it. From this side of the border, we see it constantly. You've got all of these multiple shooters, these serial killers and stuff, who are being apprehended alive. You had the one that, the guy that killed the 9 black people in the Baptist church. They took him to McDonald's and fed him. Right? And what people are saying is, hardly ever, I can't recall a single incident where there has been a black shooter and he's been taken alive. In fact,
no, I can't either.
There's very few black.
The DC sniper, wasn't he in the early or the 1990s?
Yeah, I remember that case on the DC sniper.
That's because they had to produce somebody for that. They had to produce somebody for that crime.
Gotcha.
Otherwise, he wouldn't have came through that alive.
Gotcha.
It's a strange world that we're living in, but we have moved so quickly through this show, and we haven't even covered half the things that we probably intended to cover. We've got 8 minutes left, 7 minutes left actually. So going forward, right, Yolanda, we've got this group of women here, and we've got so many more. What should we be focusing on in trying to move forward with
Getting
that?
In office would help. Getting some of our own people in office. Don't just sit up here and wait for that superhero to come in with the S on their chest, with that cape whipping in the wind that's going to come and change things for us. We have to get out there and do it for ourselves. It's like the saying goes, a closed mouth don't get fed. We can't sit up and say, well, if we just keep looking. No, groom them, raise them, promote them. Get those people out your neighborhood that want to fight, that are activists, if you don't want to get in office yourself. I've been asked by 2 different people, one to run for city council, and one asked me to run for a state representative. And I told them, okay, I'm already on.
Yolanda for president.
That's right. Get her, yeah. I'll vote.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, Trump can
But
get in there.
we definitely need to do something other than sitting
Yeah.
here and saying, well, if we just wait it out, it'll change. No, it won't, because this is
No.
old. This is old evil coming back out,
Mm-hmm.
and it's because of that orange stuff that is out, like it is. It's perpetuation of that evil and that disgust and self hate that is why it's out here. It's those little evil-minded people who have imperfections in themselves that they don't know how to accept, so they blame it on everybody else for why they have them. Is why our children are being killed. There's no such thing as you really being able to kill us off. I'm sorry, it's not going to happen. But I don't want to see it where we're at that point where we're truly at that wild, wild west thing. Where you pick off one of ours, we take out two of yours until we don't. It don't have to be that way. I got 6 grandsons. I want to see them be grown men.
Mm-hmm.
Violence only begets
Right.
violence, right? Hatred only begets hate.
Right, but at the same time, stop taking it.
Yeah.
You don't have to take it.
We have to change the
People have to
cycle.
stop taking it.
We have
Right, because if you look at the videos, it's only black people that try to comply and go along with what the rules are supposed to be. Caucasians will get up in the cop face, call them everything but the child of God, and dare them to do something about it. And then get a lawyer and get off. But we're sitting in our own house. They come into the wrong place and take us out. And it's, well, as if, why are you saying something about it? And, but we got to stop. And we got to stop trying to play by their rules and rewrite the rules.
That's right.
That's the bottom line, right there. And then we have to vote for it, and then we have to get them to support us. And there's so much evil. There's so much evil.
Jacqueline, let's just get Jacqueline in very quickly. We didn't get to cover as much as your stories we'd have liked to, but for you, we've only got a couple of minutes left. Where have you found the strength to keep on fighting?
They were saying, you get your days where you want to give up, and then, you see your child's face, and then you look at the news and you see it's continuing.
We're losing you, Jacqueline. I'm really sorry we're losing
Not
you.
many people are going to give up on their own child. Okay, can you hear me?
Now I can, yeah.
Okay. Not many people are going to give up on their own child. And, the way that the media, makes these children out to be, when my son had a 4-month-old daughter at the time of his death, and he had a son born after that. So I don't want his kids to grow up and see these articles in the news and say, Daddy killed himself. That's why I'm fighting, so that, they can, know who their dad is without all the media lies and all that. But also, I don't want his son or my remaining son to have, to worry about them and if they're going to make it through a traffic stop, or if they're going to be walking down the street and get mistaken for somebody and end up in the, out here. I mean, if, a lot of, there was a time where we could, drive and get stopped for a traffic ticket. We didn't think about, okay, maybe we're going to get shot. These days, you don't know. Like, it's, it's like if you fit a certain image to them, you're a danger to them. We black people, most of the time, we're looked at as we're aggressive and we're, dangerous and, all that. And it's, we got to change our views. And, I know that a lot of people are getting into the political realm. With me, I kind of want to start like with the children. Like I want to do something to reach out to black males, let them be safe and let them know that people care about them
Mm.
before they get to the point where they're in police custody and all this stuff. I want to start at the bottom because the government changing that is just a little too big for me.
Listen, we're gonna
I would rather
yeah.
like work,
So I just
and change.
yeah. I just want to take the time to thank you. We've actually just run out of time, and I cannot believe that we have run out of time. I just want to leave the last word, if I can, with my very new producer. I just want to say thank you for being involved in what we're doing, and we're going to have another conversation tomorrow about what we're going to do going forward. I've got some great ideas, I think. Anyway, but the last words with you, Therese.
The last words with me?
It is.
Oh, I am here for all of you. Will do anything you call me. You ask me to do something for you, and I will go to the end of the rope to find the answers for you. I am here because it is such a gratifying feeling to be able to help somebody else instead of dwell on the fact that my child is dead. I am here because I know how you feel. I know the grief. I know the pains. I might not be as knowledgeable as, like, let's say, Yolanda, okay, or Luann, or it's a working together thing. And if you come to us, I will always, if I don't know it, I promise you I will turn you on to somebody that does. I've tried to give Luann some pointers of what to do. And also as well as Elizabeth. Just some. I hope it worked. I hope it helped.
Well,
that's all I want to do, help someone's heart from hurting.
Well, I just want to thank you for being on the show. I want to thank you all for being on the show. And I'm just looking forward. I do know we've got a part 2 coming up. And Yolanda, we will get together tomorrow or Monday to finalise what we're going to do about that, okay? Along with Teresa to put that all together, okay?
Okay.
But I want to thank all of you.
Yeah,
I just want to thank you all for taking. Yeah, I want to thank you all for taking part in the show, and we just look forward to meeting and speaking with you again and updating people on your case where and when we can. All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Right. Thank you all very much. God bless. Take care. We'll speak again soon. Teresa, check your messages.
Take my messages.
Check your messages.
I'll do that, boss.
Hey, y'all. Talk to you later.
See you guys later. Bye bye. We're out of here.
I already did my time. I paid for my crime. I already did my time. I paid for my crime.